although of course doing nothing is unlikely to be the final answer. I want the group that we're proposing here to set up to look at all the various options to make sure they include the do nothing proposal, because I really do want them to look at all ideas and all suggestions. Only by doing that can we say with any confidence that we are taking the right decision. But of course this item is about more than just the theatre, it's about the future of the whole complex. Is the 7-storey office block still useful to the council? Could we lease it as office space? Should we convert it into flats? Should we knock it down and build homes there? Does the town's library have to be housed in that complex? Could it be housed here, for instance? Would that be as good or even better? What sort of museum do we want to see in the future? The item poses a number of questions and it proposes some possible answers. Now, we're not going to reach any binding decisions here this evening, but before I open up to debate, I would like to say that the council has embraced the cultural entitlement of local children and local people as a whole. So yes, we're having to cut back and we're having to make difficult and unpleasant decisions, but we also have to ensure that we don't lose sight of the Thurrock that we want to see in the future. So I would like everyone to get involved with this discussion over the next few weeks. People should make their views known and suggest new and different ways to move forward. But they should also remember that the council is not the all-seeing, the all-knowing organisation that sometimes we think we are. We don't own everything, we certainly can't afford to buy everything, and we can't make people do what they don't want to do. Now, I've made my personal views very clear. I know what I would like to see, that is a new theatre for Thurrock, but is a new theatre really capable of paying its way, feasible for Thurrock? I think it's one of the things that we have to explore very closely. So as I've said, we've got some tough choices to make and we should be talking openly about them. So to that end, I'd really like to thank the Thurrock Arts Council for their positive attitude towards this. They've made it clear that they're happy to talk with us, to join with us, to work with us. And after all, they are the people who hire the theatre, the people who tread the bulbs, the people who know better than anyone here this evening what really needs to be done and also what can be done. With that, I will move recommendations 1.1 and 1.2 on page 72 and open up.
Really re-emphasise something that you said, that the recommendations in this report are a real opportunity to consider what the provision should be, what it should look like, to start from first principles, to not have in our minds what it does now and what it's always done, to think afresh about what it could do and what it could offer. And I support the recommendations and hope that the work that is done embraces that spirit of really thinking differently about how those kind of services can be provided.
Councillor Fish.
Thank you, Leader. The arts in Thurrock are a really important part of Thurrock life. And last year as the Mayor I had the opportunity to see an awful lot of the creative side of our borough, and it was a real pleasure, and I'm really pleased to see this report coming forward, which means that we're looking at securing theatre provision for the future in Thurrock. So
that's definitely very important that appraisal work is done, because obviously, I mean, coming personally for me, I believe that having theatre in the centre of Graves is a very ideal thing. And obviously, we have to consider cost and opportunities that savings that are there. But if this is obviously looked at widely and appraised properly, then we can know the pros and cons of what is viable for us to do. But I would think that strategically location for what we have there, I mean, not talking about the other spaces unused, but for having a theatre there, I think it's still a good thing for Thurrock. And also the college, which is close proximity, we might even get more useful for the Thameside Theatre. But obviously, I would really support that the appraisal work is done, to look at what is it.
Thank you. Councillor Worrell.
Thanks, Leader. Just like to say it's quite a depressing agenda tonight, to have all of this in one evening. Thameside Theatre is something obviously that's really been close to my heart ever since I grew up in the 70s, going there, you know, as a child, and to see that we're having to come to make these decisions, but at the same time, we have to embrace that Thurrock is in a different place, that we have got on our doorstep lots of things that we didn't have before. We do have the Opera House, we have got the brand new college, you know, and we do have to look at, could we have something better, you know. The theatre is so dear to me, and I've been to lots and lots of shows at the theatre when I've sat with only 20 of us in there as well. So we have to look at, do we have to have a different way of approaching what a theatre looks like here in Thurrock? Of course we always want to see a pantomime. Of course we always want somewhere for the arts to be able to do their drama festivals. But do we need a 52-week-a-year theatre? You know, that's where we are, you know, or can we have a brand new one? Would it bring something new into the town? You know, and that's what I'd like to make sure is done in this review is, what does a new theatre do? Does it pay for itself, you know, clean its own face, you know, or do we have to look at the provision very, very differently? So I welcome this piece of work. It's a really tough piece of work, but I think that now's the time to be doing it.
Theatre in Thurrock. I think that we've made a pledge to the cultural offer for our young people in Thurrock, and that sort of, for me, goes hand in hand with the theatre. And where that's going to be or what it's going to look like, certainly for me, the heart of it all is that we continue to have a theatre and have that sort of cultural. Why should we have to go up to London or go out of our borough when the borough's growing and we want to develop that cultural offer? So I'll certainly be supporting a theatre in Thurrock, whatever that looks like.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, well, and one of the things it actually has got there is a new theatre. It is small, but there is a theatre there. But one of the big advantages it has is it's also got an open air facility. So there is something there that we can grow on. We can train our youngsters in theatre production, and if we can have a theatre somewhere else in the borough, it is actually something that could all link in together and actually make this an area where people come to rather than going to London to see some really quality productions.
It's fantastic, and I really hope that South Essex College make full use of it. I have this kind of notion that next summer we could have Midsummer Night's Dream perform there, we could do all sorts of things there that I think would be really, really exciting, and we should be working with the college to make sure that's delivered. As for the theatre provision in the college being used as a theatre, it's a lecture theatre. It isn't a theatre. There's no flight tower, there are no proper wings, you don't have the changing facilities, etc., that make a theatre work. So, you know, I just don't think that it kind of works for theatre and theatrical performances. Great for lectures, you could probably put comedians on there, you could probably put bands on there. You can't put theatre there. I'm almost certain about that. Picking up on Lynn's point, you say this is tough, and it is tough, but the title of this is Securing Theatre Provision for Thurrock. This isn't what it might have been a few years ago about closing the theatre and not replacing it. This is about how we make sure that we can provide good quality theatre services here in Thurrock going forward. And we do have to just face the fact that at the moment we subsidise theatre activities by about £350,000 a year without the rest of the subsidy that goes with the building. I would much rather the subsidy that goes into the building, that goes into bricks and mortar, goes into proper productions and goes into things that are going on the stage, not stopping a building from crumbling. And I think that's the opportunity that we have if we get this right. And I think that's why it's so important that Thurrock Arts Council are prepared to partner with us as we go forward and appraise all options. And we really should be appraising every single option. I had forgotten, Stephanie, that there was a question submitted for this by Councillor Blitt.
Yes, Chair. His question was submitted, which was, has there been any discussion or thought to setting part or all of the complex over to a different use?
Yeah, and I mean the simple answer to that is yes. A couple of years ago, when Councillor Worrell was the portfolio holder that was covering the theatre, we did have some discussions with John Scowen, who was sadly no was at that point chairing Thurrock Arts Council, and Vic Gray, about just this, and we did discuss notions such as what we could do with the foyer, whether we could turn that over to commercial organisations. Just last year, when the post office lost its home in Grays, we did look at whether we could relocate the post office there as part of a redevelopment of at least the ground floor. Just recently, we've noticed that across the road in the campus, there's no kind of gym. We've started to explore whether we could attract a gym into part of the Thameside complex in order to try and lever in some additional funding and footfall. The tower, which is now not by no means fully let. I think last year we explored whether we could make a bid to the Homes and Communities Agency to win some funding to look at refurbing that for housing. So yes, we've looked at an awful lot of different options as to alternative uses for at least part of the building over the last few years. With that, I'm going to